In all three-dimensional modeling softwares, there is a fundamental need of storing away your presets for the various commands which you have, so that you can quickly recall the presets and use them later. So in Comosys, for example, in every single macro you will find, so if I were to press shift and open the beam to beam end plate macro, you will see that you are able to enter lots and lots of different parameters, but then you can also save them away, save the entire set away as a macro preset. You can give it a name, you can press the save button and you can give it a name, and that entire set of all the variables which you've entered will be saved away. And this will save you time, because the next time you want to do a similar situation, you can just go to your macro presets, load the particular preset, say load, say apply, and then just start using it. So this is a fundamental need which is there for there in most advanced modeling programs. In Comosys, this is actually Comosys wide. It's not just macros, but so for example, if I were to open the beam command with the shift button, even over here you have this preset which you can save. Basically, any command which you have in Comosys, you can save away the settings as presets and then recall them later. In this video, I want to talk about this feature, as well as the more important side of this feature which we have in Comosys, which is AutoPresets. And that's something which is very important, and I want to talk about it. So let's start this video by first explaining how to use the presets. So over here I have a situation in which there's a main beam and there are secondary beams framing into it, and this one is IPE 300. So let's say I want to use the fin plate connection for that, and if I just go without doing anything, just go to my fin plate command, select the main, select the secondary, right click 3 times to get the connection. By the way, let me just also explain, because this is something I've been saying in other videos as well, why we need to right click 3 times. First of all, you can even select, if this was a column, you could have selected the doubler plate over there, and then the fin plate would have been adjusted. Or you can select top stiffeners and bottom stiffeners, and since those are not here, that's why we have the right clicks. And we also have this option of selecting some horizontal bracing, which might be framing into the same area, because if you might have a situation where you might want to include the forces of those horizontal bracing in the analysis. So there are reasons why we do the right click, but in any case, let me right click and finish that. So this is the default behavior which we get, let's say. And let's say I don't want this. I want in my company to connect IPE 300s in a different way. So right now this is selected M16 bolts. It is selected 3 M16 bolts. Let me just double click on the macro, open them, and I go over here, and I want to change these settings a bit. So I want to, instead of having 3 bolts, I want 4 bolts, let's say, and I want the distance to be between them to be 50, and this one 0. By the way, there's a general comment regarding when you're entering bolt distances. Always remember to enter both the x and the y directions. So don't live when you want to enter something manually, you need to enter both sides of the equation. And the reason for that is because Comosys tries to do a design, and since there are many combinations which can happen regarding the edge distance and distances and this and that. So whenever either you leave it blank and let it decide on its own, but if you're going to enter the bolt distances, then make sure you enter them on both directions. This is something we get from our users a lot, that they just enter one side and they say that nothing happened, it didn't change, and the reason for that is because they didn't enter the other side. So always make sure that these 4 or 5 variables over here are usually entered together. In any case, let's say I want 4 bolts like that. Maybe I even want the distance to be 55, make it a bit bigger. Then I also wanted to catch the bottom flange, so let's select that. and do something like this. For the thickness of the fin plate, maybe I want the thickness to be slightly bigger, slightly thicker. And so now this is the kind of fin plate connection which I want. So now that I'm happy with the way I want my IPE 300 beams to be connected to other beams through fin plates, I can go to my macro presets tab over here and say save this away. So I've got my settings in there. Obviously, I've made the changes. I've made the thickness and changes, etc. I go to my macro presets and I say save, and I can give it a name. Now this name can be anything, but it's a good practice to basically give the name of the secondary beam, because you can remember it more easily. These are the settings I want for IPE 300s. You can obviously give it any arbitrary name, but this is a better choice. And I save that away as IPE 300. And now, for example, if I were to apply, so this one is also IPE 300. If I were to now go in there and go to my fin plate connection and apply it over here, so I select them, and this is what I get over here. But now what I can do is I can select my macro and go to my previously defined preset, which I just did a while ago, and just select that from the list and say load and say OK. And the moment I do that, I get the same result as I got over here. And then I can basically keep doing this wherever I find an IPE 300 to be connected. Now let's take it one step above. So over here, what I've done is I have these three beams. This is IPE 300, as you know. This one is IPE 200, and this one is IPE 400. And what I've done is I've gone in and I've saved away. I've created the connection exactly the way I want it to be created. So in this one, I've created a fin plate stiffener. I've given some different dimensions, etc. But then I've gone in and I've saved that away as an IPE 200 preset. And similarly, for the IPE 400 one, I have done the same thing. I've gone in and I've made certain changes and I've saved it away as IPE 400. So now I have three presets saved away. And I have the same thing repeating over here. This is IPE 300. This one is 200. And this one is 400. And if I were to apply, the way I would go about doing this would now be I would go and apply my fin plate connection over here, zoom in, press M, enter, go to my list of presets, choose the IPE 301, say load, say OK, and then apply this one, go in there, press M, enter, select the IPE 200 one, and get that one finished. Then once again, go to my connection, apply it over here, and this time press M, enter, and select the IPE 400 one, say load, and press OK. So this is the way I would normally be going about doing my connections, since I've already have them saved away. So I can just go and select from my presets and keep applying them. Now, those of you who are into steel detailing and 3D modeling will be thinking a few thoughts, and I know exactly what they're thinking. And those thoughts are that in steel work, now in this case, for example, I've got three presets, but realistically speaking, these could be 300 presets. If you consider all the possible sizes of beams, the IPE sections, INP sections, UPE sections, HEA, HEB, all of them are possible situations, and each one of them probably has about 20, 30 different section sizes. So what is right now quite manageable on the screen, if I were to actually enter my company standards and actually enter my company standards for all the possible sections which we use in our day-to-day detailing, then this list will actually become a nightmare. And what will happen is that this list will become so long that actually scrolling through it and selecting the right one itself will now start becoming a hassle on its own. So just like the whole purpose of doing this was to not enter these variables every single time, and I know this it will still be easier than doing that, but for sure, once you start running into hundreds of possibilities, then merely selecting from this, and this list will get so long that you'll need to scroll down and you squint your eyes, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you who have actually tried creating these presets for hundreds of different cases will know exactly what I'm talking about. So, is there a solution to this problem of having extremely long lists from which you need to choose from every single time? So, to tell you about the solution, let me first give you some basic information that when you save away these presets with a different name, so for example, this is IPE 400, they're saved away in a file with an extension of MPR, MPR standing for macro presets. So whatever the name you give it, so if it's IPE 400, the file will be IPE400.mpr. That will be the name of the file in which that preset is stored. Now, I want to take you to this button over here, which takes you to the Preferences directory folder of Comosys. And if I press that, you've got lots of files and directories over here. But let me just move down to the fin, since we're talking about the fin plate connection. Let me move down. And we get to this file called the fin plate connection macro preset overrides. Now, this is the general format. They will all end with macro preset overrides. So, for example, you have beam to beam angle cleat connection macro preset override. These last three words will be the same, macro preset override, and in the beginning you will see the name of the connection. So in our case, it is fin plate connection macro preset override. Now, if I were to double click on this file, over here I've got an empty file. It just has the header over there, and I can now enter a line, and I can say, if you see an IPE 300 profile, then I press the tab key to give a space between the two. If you see an IPE 300, use the IPE 300.mpr file. Similarly, if you see an IPE 200 profile tab, use the IPE 200.mpr file. Similarly, if you see the IPE 400 profile, then use the IPE 400.mpr file, and I can save this away in my company standards. And now when I do that, something interesting happens. So let me just go and delete these three macros. And let me go and try using the fin plate again. Normally, what I did previously was I would first apply the fin plate macro and then go to my macro preset, select it from the list, and then load it and apply it again to modify it. Now let me go and select the beam, the secondary beam, apply it, select the main, the secondary, apply it, select the main, the secondary, and apply it. And immediately what's happening is that it is going to my company standards, it is going to my project preferences directory, it's going to the fin plate connection macro preset override file. It's going through this file, and it's finding whether an MPR has been defined for that particular section. And if it has been defined, then it will just pull out that particular MPR and apply it directly. This is what we call auto presets for macros, and this is extremely beneficial because once you have them set up for your main macros, you can literally be sure that your company standards are being applied everywhere, and you can just go click, and there's no even if you have hundreds of cases stored away as company presets, you can be assured that the proper parameters of the macros will be pulled in from those presets, applied, and then used in the case in which you're trying to use them. Now, this very powerful system is currently available for most of your main connections. So it's available for your beam-to-beam end plate connections, for your stiffen end plate connection, for your fin plate connection, for your angle cleat, for your apex haunch, for example. It's available for your beam to column connections. I mean, these are the connections which comprise most of your building. It is also available for some base plate connections, which you can use, and I'll be talking about that in a second because there's something special to show over there. But basically, what you need to do is you need to go in there in the project preferences directory and look for files which end with macro preset override, and those will, and next to that will be the name of the macro, and then you can just double click on those and add as many sections as you want according to your company needs. So basically go to this preferences directory and just choose the appropriate macro preset override file, fill it up. First of all, obviously save away the macro presets and then fill up this file, and then just distribute those files throughout your company, and then everybody will be using the same standards. Now, let me give an example of this base plate macro with the same auto preset feature, but it's slightly different, so I want to talk about it. So here I've got two columns. They're both HEA 300. This one is HEA 300 as well as this one, but the bases have been fixed differently. So this one has a fixed base. All the degrees of freedom have been fixed, whereas this one has a hinged base. So the rotational degrees of freedom are free to move. Now, obviously, for a hinged one, we'll make a different connection, and for the fixed one, we'll make a different connection, but the sections are the same. So if I were to go in over here and enter my macro, what I've done is I have put in certain variables for the stiffness. I have put in certain numbers over there, and I've saved them away with the name of HEA 300 fixed. So this is the name I've given it, HEA 300F. But for the other one, which is a hinged connection, what I've done is I have gone inside and I have removed all the stiffness because this is a hinged connection. I have also made some changes in the type with which the bolting will be done, and I've changed the locations. So this one, as you can see, is completely different from the other one. There are some different sized anchor bolt holes, etc. But the point is that the profiles are the same, and our auto connect, or rather auto preset feature, basically looks for a certain section name and then applies a certain preset. So, but in this case, we've got the same section name, but we've got two different presets depending on whether it's hinged or it's fixed. Now, if I were to go, so this particular case is slightly different. So if I were to go to my base plate macro preset override file over here and double click that, you will see that this particular one has a slightly different format. There's a profile name. So I'm saying that whenever you see an HEA 300 section, now there are two files, MPR files I've given it. One for the fixed base case and one for the hinged base case. So what I'm telling is that if you see an HEA 300 and if it is fixed, if the joint has been fixed, then use this preset. But if the joint at the end has been is hinged or has been given the restraints according to similar to a hinge, then use this particular preset. So this one is HEA 300F, this one is HEA 300H. Now, having set up my file like that, if I were to now just so these two columns are also HEA 300. This one is fixed, this one is hinged. If I were to go to my base plate macro, just click on that, immediately the preset for the fixed case is applied. But if I were to select apply the same macro to this column, the preset for the hinged case would be applied. And this is very useful. So you can save away for your columns the hinged cases and the fixed cases as your presets. And then once again, just go click around depending on whatever restraints you've given to the joints, the appropriate macro preset will be chosen. Obviously, if it's a different profile, if it's HEA 200, if it's HEA 400, then the appropriate preset file will be chosen. Now, those of you who do steel detailing on a daily basis, I'm sure they must have appreciated the value of this auto preset feature, because they know that the reason why they don't actually go about creating the presets is because the number of presets runs into hundreds, and then it becomes an issue choosing from that long list. And also things like whether it's a hinged case or a fixed case, and all those things can themselves become an issue. So I'm not going to go through all the macros which support this feature. I've just given you a brief summary that all your major connections are supported. Your beam to beam, your beam to column connections are supported. Your base plates are supported, and your purlins are supported. For example, purlins and girts, etc. So your main connections are all supported, and what you need to do is the first thing you need to do when you're setting up Comosys in your company is to, and it doesn't take that long, by the way. When you have a good give this job to any good detailer, and they will sit down maybe for say maximum 3-4 days, and they will basically create your entire company standards and save them away with appropriate names, and then create those MPR correlation files, which we just saw, the macro preset override files. And once they set that up, they can forward those files to everybody in the company, and then you basically it's point and shoot, and the program will be connecting according to your company standards. And those who know detailing, those who are into detailing, they will know that there is no comparison between selecting these presets or going through these long lists and not selecting them and just clicking the macros. And the amount of time this feature can save you can really be a lot. So this is what I wanted to say about the auto presets for the moment, and I hope you will really use and love this feature.